Tommy, do you have a card?
Let's briefly talk about Flummox Cyclops, which I think has one of the most adorable lines of text I've ever seen, which is it's a 4-mana 4/4 with whenever 2 or more creatures your opponent controls attacks, it can't block, which is adorable.
Yeah.
But then someone went and gave it reach, which when you're making an entire great design around the fact that this thing sometimes can't block, why would you give it an ability that only makes sense when it's blocking? It just makes me so sad that like this would just be so much cleaner and cuter and more coherent of a design if you just took the reach off of it.
Well, what I like with the reach in combination with its ability is that normally, your flyers are blocked by things with reach, but it gives them a way to get past. However, they have to attack with something that can be eaten by the ground. So it asks the opponent to like invest a little more in their evasion to get past the Cyclops.
I also think it's important because if it didn't have reach, I wouldn't look at a 4-mana 4/4 and think I'm gonna block with this, right? I would just think I don't care about the fact I can never block because I'm never blocking with this, you know. In red, I want to be attacking with my 4-mana 4/4 as much as possible, and now by giving it reach, I am thinking about blocking it, which makes the fact that it can't block those creatures feel a little more poignant and funny, even though I'm actually probably very rarely blocking with this, right? If
there might
was
even
never blocking anyway, I wouldn't be worried about the fact it can't block.
There might even be situations where they attack with their flyer and a 2/2 so that their flyer can get by you. Oh, never mind. I was going to say, and then you block the 2/2 with the Cyclops.
But you can't.
But you can't. That's fair.
If that were how it worked, fine. I would be.
Oops.
But if they're going to be able to attack you with 2 things anyway, you're just going to attack with it, and then the text is going to be basically irrelevant. I just think this is a case where they made the design like strictly better, but then they sort of stole the part from under it that was its thing.
That's fair.
I disagree. I still think the reach helps sell the ability underneath it. I do find it odd that it just can't block at all, but it's harder to say it can block one thing, like.
It does join the recent trend of red cards that randomly have reach, that everyone forgets have reach until they get got. But I think its ability helps highlight the fact that sometimes it can block and maybe mitigates that a little bit. I don't know. I really want to see it swatting something out of the air to help.
It should have had a bird on the end of its club.
Yeah. So the card I want to talk about is the Titans, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, and Kroxa. I really like them because, like with the other escape design, they're repetitive mechanics on cards that lead to developed gameplay, like new things happening, more variety. So Uro draws you more cards, right? Which is the best random mechanic in Magic the Gathering. And the way that you kind of like, you cast it for the effect and then it goes into your yard and you recast it later so that they can only be cast from the graveyard is really clever. It feels like something you'd see on the Custom Magic subreddit like a month after a new mechanic comes out, where they like explore the space of the mechanic in ways that hadn't been done before and go to some weird extreme that only works on a couple designs. And that's what these feel like, but I really enjoy them. And then Kroxa is the same. It's a Punisher effect where they have to do a thing, but if they do it a certain way, then they lose 3 life instead. But maybe that decision changes on the next time they do it. Maybe they make a different decision because the game is different now. So I really like those designs for that reason.
And they really feel like they're escaping because they basically start in your graveyard. Yeah. So,
and you throw them in jail.
Every other thing in the set, they sort of start there, and then they have to sort of like work their way out. So there's actually a game story arc of these things going from the graveyard to the battlefield, rather than them going from the battlefield to the graveyard and then maybe back to the battlefield, which doesn't feel the same.
I wonder, what if more escape cards were like this?
Yeah,
it would be much better.
I was about to say, what if escape was evoke, but you have to evoke it the first time, something like that,
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. This would just be better.
This implementation is cooler. Yeah.
I think there's less space though. Like it's a very
Oh, yeah.
specific order that you have to do. But all right,
And
Trevor.
then you could just let it exile itself when it dies, and then you get it once, and you can help it escape, and then whatever.
Yeah.
There's like space there. If, like, could this have been explored more? But I think the issue is, it's hard to bake all that into the mechanic. That is what you want to be doing. But I don't think there's an echo design. You would just give it say to the battlefields that you're okay with happening than once. And there's probably not a lot of those, but there's not an insignificant number. I think it's doable.
Yeah.
Just give them all cycling.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Trevor, pick a card. Any card.
What to pick? I might actually need a second because not have that many cards prepared. I was just going off the cards I remembered and liked.
Okay, Tommy. Tommy's got a card.
Okay, so I will name. This is just a short list of cards who I think were thematic flavor home runs.
Okay.
So I don't know that you need to say much more about them, but Heliod's Punishment is perfect. Aliros is perfect. I feel like there was another one. Oh, Inevitable End is perfect. That might be my list of flavor home runs, but sorry, Haktos too. That one also.
Who's Aliros? Who's Aliros?
That's the Narcissus.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that one's great. And it plays really well, too. I really like that card.
Yeah, so those all I thought they hit a trope, and they hit it really smoothly in a way that was well done.
Yeah. One card. Okay, so you have a creature named Timur, the Murder King. You return to Theros. He's chosen from death. Epic art leading an army have returned. And his cool thing is that he exiles cards from graveyards to gain you life. Yeah. He was the Murder King. That was his name. And so it shows him leading an army, and I understand. Okay, the problem is, and all this, right, it sounds like a really disappointing card. Guess what? In Limited, he's super powerful. First pick. Like, pack one, pick one, you should take him. Because he's dominant against any deck that relies on escape. Like, there's decks where the opponent plays Timurette, and you say, oh, I just lost. Like, I can't do anything. So, he's still very powerful, but not in nearly a way that's resonant at all with his character, or what you would expect from someone who looks like that, or, you know, is an iconic character from the first set. I mean, not iconic, but like his card was well known. It was kind of memed for a while as like Timurette the Burger King, you know, they change his head to a Burger King crown or something. So disappointment for me there on Timurette.
Yeah. It's a odd return. I think you kind of touched on something where it's not really an individual card thing, but I know Tommy has a lot of thoughts on this, and I'd like to hear him elaborate, which is the amount of incidental graveyard hate in the set.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Tommy?
I don't like when you make a set that's about a mechanic to like throw random hate in it, and I think the reason why they did it here is because they felt, as I think all of us felt when we first read Escape, of like, is this okay? Is this gonna be miserable? And I think they probably just didn't have enough faith that it wasn't going to be miserable, so they just threw all of these things all over the place. And yeah, I really don't like if you're going to encourage players to do this, and you're afraid it's going to be so oppressive when they do it that you feel you have to throw these kinds of things in. It just leads to these none games where there's this certain kind of balance where it's 50-50, because half the time one of you gets screwed in one way and half the time the other gets screwed the other way. That doesn't really lead to balance. Like the game where I play my escape deck against Timurette, and the game where I play my escape deck and steamroll someone. Neither of those is a great game of Magic. And I think they're trying to balance in a way that maybe numerically looks balanced, but does not lead to balanced, fun games.
Well, maybe. I'd counter that. I found in the games I played, yes, there were a lot of ways to exile things, but it actually led to a lot of very interesting moments where each other's graveyards were the battlefields. Like, to win the game, he had to protect his Timuret. Or to win the game, I had to draw my Leonin, which I then had to, which then I had to find a way for it to die so I could exile their Uro. I think if you look at the cards to exile, a lot of them, Timuret's the exception. He's the annoying one that can do it forever. But a lot of times it's a one-time effect, it's on an ETB, or it's on a death trigger, or it's part of a saga. And I like that application of it if they feel it's important to be in the set, because then it kind of adds texture to the gameplay and the interaction between your opponent. It adds another dimension to the battlefields that you're fighting over. And I had a lot of those moments, and I was surprised by it. So I will defend that those things exist. They got to be careful where they put them. And on Timur, it was just really stupid.
Yeah, I one off is fine. That doesn't bother me if it's going to eat something or whatever. It's the repeatable, your deck is just not going to win now.
It's like just having rest in peace or something, where it's just like all the graveyard's done now. It's
yes.
Yeah, I think that's the exact goal. They want the problem with a set like this, and this is why one of the very first things I thought of when I was thinking of Greek tragedy is Grave Devotion, right? That one chroma card. And the problem is you can't fight Grave Devotion very easily. There's not a universally accessible tool to deal with the graveyard, right? So I dismissed it offhandedly. I'm like, well, it's boring because the only thing it does is go up typically, and there's nothing. The opponent wants to not kill your creatures is kind of interesting, I guess, but it's tough. It's hard to care about the graveyard in such a fashion, and graveyard sets are a little harder in that respect. The incidental graveyard hate is meant to allow for that kind of interaction. I don't know if I like the way they did it, which is basically, did you pick this card from the draft? It's kind of how it feels sometimes, but I think I've only got one or two more cards to pick.
Is everybody okay with just one more card? I'm being the barbarians are storming the castle right now.
I actually does everyone have another card they want to talk about?
I just want to say the full art lands were sweet. That is my last card comment. Is that they really did cool new things with the full art lands, and I appreciated that.
Yeah. They're beautiful. I guess my last card is Treacherous Blessing, which I really liked. The risk reward of oh cool, I get a bunch of cards, but I'm going to lose a bunch of life. I need to figure out a way to get rid of this. Felt very black in the way that I love black. I just wish it didn't have the final thing of whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability, you sacrifice it. I felt like that was making the escape hatch a little too obvious and too easy. The decks that I've seen that use this card and constructed have other ways to get rid of their enchantments, and it would feel very black to not have that if you just demand that the player find a way to get rid of it instead of giving them a hint.
Yeah.
The only thing I could figure, I totally agree with you that line reads as weird. The only thing I could figure is that they wanted you to not donate it.
Oh.
Which is a horrible reason to put a sentence on a card, to be clear. But I assumed that was because, what on earth are you targeting an enchantment with that's not destroying it? A control magic? I'm not concerned about that. There's just nothing else there.
But that's kind of hilarious. Now I want to do that. I want that line to not exist so I can donate this to my opponent.
I don't think that's why, because that's not the worst way to die from a donate. I think it's
that's fair.
I think it's because of Shimmerwing Chimera and cards like that, Rescue, etc.
Oh.
Bounce this back to your hand and play it again. You just drawed 6 cards and you still have the same drawback. Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That might be why. I don't think it's meant to feel like an escape hatch in that respect. I wish it was it might also be hey, it's fun as an escape hatch too. But if you're gonna try to be safe in that respect, make it say sacrifice it and you lose 10 life. You know what I mean? You can survive, but you're going to lose a lot of life right now instead of some life in the future.
Sacrifice it and discard your hand.
Something like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Make it an actual cost, and that way it doesn't feel as much like an escape hatch.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that when you want the player to feel clever, and this undermines the ability of the player to feel clever.
And then I'm cheating. I'm taking one more card. Wolf Willow Haven, the enchantment that lets you ramp a little bit. Okay, you're doing enchantment based ramp. This is pushed a little bit. I remember reading in the M files or whatever that Play Design wanted an activated ability on this. They wanted it to do something more, and I was like, why? And they settled on the 5 mana get a wolf. Like, Play Design wanted that. That seems really strange. Like, what a do nothing thing. But then Companion came out, and the Companion that I'm most interested in for my Ikoria is the one that lowers the cost of activated abilities. And all of your cards have to have activated abilities for it to be your Companion. And I was just doing a search, like, what cards actually have activated abilities? And now I'm like, I see. So that's the last thing I wanted to talk about, just because I realized why. I realized why they would randomly want this to have an activated ability.
That's why? I don't get it. But this isn't even those colors. The Zerta is red-white.
Yeah, but you don't have to be red-white to use her as a companion.
What I mean is, like, why would I play this in a Zerta deck?
For ramp. If you want ramp in any of those decks, there's very few ramp cards that also have activated abilities.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. It's a ramp card with an activated ability.
Yeah.
My assumption was it gives you something to do once you don't have the need for excess mana anymore, which is the common problem with these kinds of cards.
There is
that.
that.
It's an outlet for your excess mana. I like the card. One thing I like about it is it does not say only as a sorcery. It says during your turn, which is so much more of an English sentence.
Yes.
I personally I've started to get this radical idea of they should say use this only during your turn instead of activate this ability. And I don't know if that'd be better, but I think it'd be kind of fun to experiment and see if people get it, because it's a lot more normal of a sentence than activate this ability. It's my little addition. Is I like the better verbiage of during your turn, and I would be interested in even cleaning up that verbiage further, which a lot of designers want to.
I like the specificity of the way the rules are now, but yeah, I hear you. Particularly on things like converted mana cost. I wish there were better ways to do things like that. Okay. This has been a fairly comprehensive design review. I say fairly, it's been very comprehensive. I feel like we've been mostly critical. I would echo that. I think the pieces it ended up having, it did a really good job of putting them all together. But yeah, everything else I said also still stands. So,
I mean, when you're working on a deadline, these things happen. It could have been a lot worse.
I enjoyed drafting it a lot. I thought the limited environment was good and fun.
I will say my parting thoughts is I think, of course, we're more critical. This is a review. As designers, we're a lot less likely to focus on the rosy bits, because the rosy bits of this set are not necessarily the designs or the way the designs are clicking together and put together.
Yeah.
That's a different perspective than what we're taking on it. I think the set is fine. I think I'm not exactly excited by it. I don't look at an individual card and get excited by it. Do I play with the cards? Yes, I think the cards are fine to play with in a format. I just think that none of the individual cards excited me too much. The mechanics were not done in the most exciting of ways. There were lots of things that could have been done better. But as the execution of a product, it is good. My parting lesson on that for any amateur designers in the audience is Wizards of the Coast has the massive benefit that people are basically forced to play with their cards. And so, like, not literally forced, but you're going to be drafting these cards to hang out with your friends. You're going to be making these cards to hang out with your friends. You're going to be playing standard decks because you play standard, It's a lot more likely that Wizards of the Coast can succeed on a set like this, where you discover the value during the play rather than be enticed into it. And in addition, they also have the marketing push of the return to Theros. They have advertising, all those different things. The tough thing is, if you're designing your own game, if you're probably an indie designer, if you're listening to this, and you need to work really hard to make sure people play your game. And something like this, even if you're on a deadline, it's a lot tougher to get away with it, This might be a great set in execution. It might be wonderful to draft. It might have been the best draft format ever. But if I'm not excited looking at any of the mechanics, and if I actually am a little disappointed looking at them, I'm not likely to buy any booster packs. I didn't buy booster packs of this set, And it's precisely because I didn't see anything that enticed me to buy any booster packs.
But
the first time I bought a booster pack in years was for Unstable, because I needed a booster pack of that set, And
But 3 months from now, we'll be talking about Ikoria, which I suspect is going to be a different story as far as that goes.
we'll see.
We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks so much for doing this with me. We went long. This will be broken up into videos. Hopefully.
Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, and we might do some more of this of older sets, not just the new ones that come out. We'll see what kind of content we end up doing. But thank you guys for sticking with us, and hopefully you enjoyed.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good night.